I'm Satara, and over the past few weeks, our group has studied and researched the effect of climate change on the Arctic ecosystem and the polar bear population. Polar bears face an impending climate crisis, and it's important that everyone realize the magnitude of the problem. But what is the problem? First, I'll be talking about how climate change impacts the Arctic ecosystem. So if the average temperature in your city rose by 1 degree Celsius, you wouldn't even notice. But on the world scale, an average temperature increase of 1 degree Celsius can have disastrous implications. Now, some people wonder, is the debate really over? Have scientists all agreed on climate change? The answer is yes. Over 97% of climate scientists agree that the Earth is warming because of human action. As you can see here, greenhouse gases act as a blanket in the atmosphere that keeps the Earth warm. However, over the past 200 years, humans have flooded the atmosphere with greenhouse gases by burning fossil fuels like oil and coal. The extra greenhouse gases act as a second blanket, causing temperatures to rise. Deforestation also contributes to climate change. Trees soak up carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas, from the atmosphere. So fewer trees means fewer greenhouse gases in the air. Nowhere is this slight temperature increase more fatal than in the Arctic. The Arctic is warming at almost twice the rate of the rest of the world. So why does this happen? The shiny snow and ice in the Arctic reflect sunlight into the air. As the Arctic loses snow and ice, less energy is reflected and more is absorbed by the water, causing the water to warm even faster. This is known as the albedo effect. Even a change of a few degrees could bring the temperature above freezing and completely alter the Arctic ecosystem. By 2040, summer sea ice could be limited to the northern coast of Greenland and Canada.
Hi, I'm Jessica, and I will be talking about the historical context of the polar bear problem. As you can see, this is a graph of the average monthly Arctic sea ice extent from September 1979 to 2011. As can be seen, there is clearly a rapid decrease as the time goes by. Studies show that the Arctic sea ice has decreased 14% since the 1970s. The Arctic sea ice loss for polar bears mean that there is reduced access to food, lower cub survival rates, increase in drowning, increase in cannibalism, loss of access to denning areas, and declining population size. If conditions in the Arctic continue to devolve at the current rate, we could see the extinction of polar bears at the end of the century. Clearly, something has to change.
Hi, I'm Ami, and I'm going to talk about the environmentalist and indigenous perspective. Organizations and committees today are dedicated to raising awareness for polar bears. Most environmentalists view climate change as a primary perpetrator to the decline in polar bear numbers and work to emphasize the severity of climate change and its effect on the world. Polar bears face endangerment from climate change caused by human activity. Environmentalists believe that we owe it to polar bears to help. On an international scale, activists are continually working together to protect polar bears and have recently prompted for legislative action to move polar bears from being classified as from Appendix 2 to Appendix 1. Being classified as Appendix 2 means that international trade of polar bears is legal, which has resulted in around 300 polar bears being traded annually. Intercontinental activists on the Convention of International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora are pushing for polar bears to be classified as Appendix 1 in order to protect them from becoming endangered or even extinct and stopping international trade. The survival of polar bears is pivotal to indigenous communities in the Arctic as well. Polar bears have long been a part of the ecosystem in the Arctic and serve as crucial resources. Here you can see the distribution of polar bears where they live in the Arctic alongside native populations. So these native communities in the Arctic region have adapted polar bears into their culture and depend on them for food and economic needs. The indigenous communities do not hunt polar bears for sport as foreign hunters do, and instead need these polar bears for bear pelts, paws, and teeth for the purpose of economic profit. These Arctic communities are affected by the decreasing population and have expressed their need of banning international hunting in order for polar bears to stay local and prevent them from extinction.
Hey, I'm Ben. I'm here to talk about business and government opinions on climate change. Can you believe that 90 companies are responsible for over 2/3 of greenhouse gas emissions, or that former Vice President Al Gore had been accused of causing fake climate change hype? Let's take a look at the truth behind all these rumors. For some companies, climate change means money. Chevron, Exxon, or some shipping companies. They benefit from climate change. They're rooting for it. The melting ice cap reveals 20% of the world's current oil reserves in new sea routes. There's a wide range of industries hollering for climate change, but the opposition is also strong. Levi-Strauss or Starbucks. They see the imminent threat of climate change in their businesses, so they're active in spearheading this green movement. On the other side, the government. There's undeniably large role the government plays, and it seems like they're not taking immediate actions internationally. Is there no public support? Yes, there is public support. A Stanford University study group had concluded that the average American household is willing to give up over $134 of their monthly budget to support such policies. Well, let's take a look at another perspective. Who makes decisions in this nation? The president, senators, or CEOs? So these are old people. They won't see the effect or damage, benefit of doing anything with climate change. So rather than focusing on the scientific part of climate change, maybe we should look at the emotional part, how polar bears will have no place to live.
Howdy, I'm Josh. Today I'm going to be talking about the current state of polar bears. So, there are currently 20,000 to 25,000 polar bears in the world, and most of them they're endangered because of human contact on each other and polar bear contact. I'm about to address to you both sides of the story. Polar bear on polar bear acts of violence occurs during cannibalism and mating season. During the mating season, male polar bears fight for the right to mate with female polar bears. And during the process of mating, they can be very aggressive on the female polar bear, thus resulting on injuries on both sides, which could lower the survival rate of all polar bears. Another crucial thing for the survival of polar bears and how humans affect them almost directly is ice and flow. Polar bears need flow to survive. On this flow, polar bears have the advantages of using quick and mobility maneuvers to take out their prey, which consists mostly of ringed seals, walruses, and bearded seals. Without the ice, polar bears lose hunting ground and have to rely on their fat reserves to survive. Have to rely on their fat reserves to survive. It is imperative to note that the ice is going away due to global warming, also known as climate change. The climate change occurs because the greenhouse gases that we emit every day into the atmosphere, which increases the temperature. And as my former members have said, increase in temperature means less ice. Less ice means less polar bears.
Hi, I'm Brianna, and I'll be talking about how we can save the polar bears. We miss our ice caps. I think that one picture says a lot about the situation with the polar bears. The polar bear population, slowly but surely, is on the decline due to a number of reasons. Climate change is a big one. The sea ice is melting, which is the primary habitat for polar bears. Because of this, polar bears are drowning and they aren't able to get enough food. We can help in small ways to help slow and maybe even in the long run stop global warming. We can carpool, we can purchase goods with less packaging, we can use fuel-efficient vehicles, we can lobby for legislation that supports a more sustainable environment. Another solution to the polar bear problem is reducing conflict. Many bears have been attacked by humans and killed because they've strayed into human towns. We need to ensure that we use passive methods that don't result in violence and killing to get the bears to safety, so both parties can leave the situation unscathed. In other words, we need to develop a good working relationship with the polar bears. The next thing we want to do is reduce the impact the industry has on the Arctic. Big oil companies are trying to extend up north, and this could be disastrous for the polar bears. If an oil spill were to occur, the seal in that picture could be a polar bear. What we want to do is lobby with the government officials to oppose oil and gas development in the Arctic. And finally, we want to put a stop to hunting and trade in polar bear parts. Hunting polar bears and trading polar bear parts. The fact that humans are still allowed to kill polar bears for the mere purpose of having a rug for their trophy room is absolutely preposterous. So of course we want to encourage the government to ban trophy hunting and polar bear parts trade.
Peace out, polar bears.
Thank you for watching our video on the polar bears.
Bye.
Okay. Bye. Bye.
Bye.